There's a cool game that I'm actually playing through. Bird Brain. Bird Brain. It's a cool game though. If you're still listening and watching, yeah, I had to emphasize that because of the content that I was about to convey about this game titled Bound by Flame. And it's a PS3 game, though they re-released the game on PS5. I think. It's PS. I think they released it upon PS5. Though it's called Bound by Flame. Okay, and in the game, it's like a 25 hour game. Okay, epic story, and you get to play through it all. Yeah, the whole story. It's sort of cool. Though, like, okay, so there's this guy, and he's part of the mercenary group. There's like this other land, okay, yeah, and they're elves and so forth. There are other creatures, other species even that are like sort of humanoid. Uh, and once upon a time there were dwarves and yeah, a few other species, probably gnomes as well. Though humanoids, okay. Uh, though there's the main character is like a mercenary, and so like okay, so the mercenaries were hired of these this group of people, uh, this organization titled the Red Scribes, and it's all sort of a bit rustic, yeah, a little bit on the medieval side, like probably a little bit before medieval, maybe a little, because they were still using scrolls and things like that, and sort of close to what the kids might call ancient, okay, older uh, timeline, partly primitive, partly civilized, okay, yeah, and so like so this mercenary is a mercenary, and like okay, so they were hired as the Red Scribes. You need to check this game out. It's called Bound by Flame, okay, and so the mercenaries were hired to the Red Scribes to like sort of protect the Red Scribes while the Red Scribes got to the Elven lands to help win the war. And what had happened was there were these people out of the far north. Like most people weren't aware of where the Ice Lords were from. Not actually. There's people called the Ice Lords, and they were trying to like take over all of the land and kill everybody on the land. Okay, they were gonna, yeah, and they'd already wiped out the gnomes, the dwarves. They'd already wiped out the dwarves north of the elves and the humans. Okay, the elves were in between the dwarves and the humans. Okay, and the ice lords were further north of the dwarves. Okay, and so the Ice Lords come down, and they're humanoid as well, though they're sorcerers, and they're like they use some really dark magic. They're sort of bold about some things. They didn't really have any ethics or anything like that. Not actually, though they had some sorcery, and so they're gonna like take over all of the land and kill everything. All right, and it's sort of interesting because like they raised this army of undead people, undead, okay, the skeletons, mostly skeletons, some like behemoths and like twisted magic liches and things like that. Liches, yeah, they have fleshy matter, though they're magically contorted biological material that creates something else. In this game, that's what a lich was, okay, and so like the red scribes actually are like performing this ritual, and they were going to get this power so that they could turn the tide of the war and win the war. Though, and there were the mercenaries like trying to keep them safe, and then like all of a sudden the undead come along to stop the ritual. Like coincidentally, there were the undead, the dead walkers, and the dead walkers come along, a bunch of skeletons mostly, and and like and so the mercenaries like well, the Deadwalkers like attack the temple, and then the mercenaries like get into the incantation room to keep the Red Scribe safe, and something with the spell goes wrong. Okay, it was an experimental spell. Yeah, they had they'd taken a former Ice Lord prisoner and got information out of that person. Yeah. And so they came up with this ritual, and they were going to pull this power, and that would help them become more powerful so that they could stop the Ice Lords. Though the power, like something with the spell, amidst all the undead coming into the room and everything, and like it went wrong, it went wild, actually. Okay, it went wild, really. And so like all these flames, like they all went towards like that. There were these flames, and then they went towards the main character. All right, and then like from that point on, that's at the beginning of the game, and at that point on, like the main character starts hearing this demon. Well, what he calls a demon. It's a spirit. Okay. Though, I mean, the game actually is really interesting to consider psychologically and philosophically. Okay, because the dialogue, the specific dialogue, like thinking about it, I've been playing through it for like the past few days, and like sort of quite a lot. Though thinking about it, it's like the dialogue. I'm not certain it's not him. Not actually. It's sort of like the dialogue actually is consistent with like, okay, so supposedly he's a spirit out of the world heart. I think it's something that the guy made up. Like the main character sort of made it up because like it was sort of like catching part of his spirit, part of his own spirit on fire. Like either the flames of like that went towards him, either they were a demon, what he called a demon spirit. The others are never certain that it's a demon. They're not certain it's a demon. Though he calls it a demon. He's sort of a cynical character, and he uses curse words, and he's sort of casual, and he's sort of cool. Alright? And though he calls it a demon, though it's in his head, and like, though the dialogue, it's like, man, I'm not certain it's not him. Like like it caught some of his subconscious, like the human brain, for an example. Like most humans don't use that much of their brain, not actually. 15% supposedly is like really high. Supposedly, yeah. Like 20% actually is really unheard of. Though, like, there's this other spirit, okay? Like, and it's like, it's sort of like it, like, caught flame or something to his own. It's sort of like the dialogue. It's like, if you really pay attention, man, you really consider psychologically, okay, psychologically it's sort of weird, alright? Though philosophically, like, thinking about the dialogue, I think it might be him, okay? Though it's really sort of a cool story, and it's like ice represents like death and destruction, okay? And you think about the planets, like if there weren't an ozone layer, which, okay, the only reason there's an ozone layer though is because of the Ice Age. The only reason, bud, because of the Ice Age, it created gas that we call oxygen, okay? And that created an ozone on the outer shell. It's just like gas, bud. That's all it is. It's like a layer of gas, okay? That's like, because of the ice, because of a mixture of the ice and the warmth, though, mostly because of the ice, man. Else it'd be like Hermes or Aphrodite, like really, really, really fucking hot. Alright? Like no atmosphere, not at all. Hot. Alright? Though it's like So, like, there's this gas that surrounds the planet because of the Ice Age, really. Though, though it's like he's got this fire spirit, which is totally unlike all of the other magic that's ascertained in the story on upon the planet in the history of the people. Like, it's the sorcerers were using ice magic and death. They were necromancers. And the red scribes, they started studying magic and they used some healing magic. Though, I mean, it was sort of mostly some trivial magic, like a little bit of thunder and lightning, sort of sparks throwing and that sort of thing for a weapon. Though most of the witches and the sorcerers, they use ice and like some sort of an ice magic. And it's like big shards of ice, like surround them and keep them safe, and like give people frostbite, and that sort of thing. Though during the game, like the demon actually wants more of him, more of the main character, and he's talking about how they're using his power because he's of the world heart. That's where the spirit came from. It's what he calls a demon, though. He calls it a demon. Nobody else calls it a demon, not at all. Not throughout the whole game, not at all. He's the only one that calls it a demon. I think it's him. I think it's him. Like, considering the dialogue, I really think it's him. Like a part of his psyche that got set on fire or something. It's sort of interesting. Though, like, he transforms. He grows horns, and his skin burns. Like, sort of looks like a dark elf. Sort of like that color. Sort of interesting. And he grows horns, big horns, and he's got like this big, like burned area on his left shoulder, like heat coming out, that sort of thing, and he shoots fire. It's sort of interesting though. It's an interesting game. I just thought that I would mention that.